Always wanted a tenoning head for the crosscut saw, the Wadkin CC, which is the big crosscut saws that have the same PK motors. And actually Wadkin, through special order, could get one of the CCs with an extended arbor to bolt 4-inch tenon blocks under the nut and to do trenching of birds' mouths and tenons and big timbers. And so you would actually take one of these blocks and run it across the timber. The one for the Wadkin was a 5-inch diameter head, and that of course didn't clear the motor, so it really only did birds' mouths or timbers from the one side. I've been trying to find them forever, and they're just impossible to find. I imagine they're in drawers somewhere if anybody did have them. But they're virtually the same as these heads, which are off the Wadkin tenoners. This one in particular is off the EKA, and it's a 7-inch diameter head. Of course, these are 1 3/4 bore, and the Wadkin CC is an 1 1/4 bore, and so that can be accomplished with a T-bushing like I made here. And of course, these heads could simply be fitted with a bushing. Unfortunately, the tenoning heads come in 2 directions. Obviously, there's a top and a bottom head, and there's a left-handed head and a right-handed head. And this particular model is a left-handed head. And so in this configuration would put the nicker side of the cutter against the motor, which is of course not what you'd want. Unfortunately, it's just extremely hard to find these heads, and if you do, they're usually pretty pricey, even though Whitehill and other manufacturers are making aftermarket heads for the tenoners. I think a lot of the machinery dealers are actually destroying these heads, which I think is a crime, mostly due to machinery safety regulations. I guess that's debatable. I suppose it's all good and safe. Initially, I was going to throw this away, and I decided that I may be able to use it. And the blocks are made of aluminum, and after looking at the way it was made, I thought that why don't I just cut that off? And so what I did was I simply cut the nicker portion of the tenoning head off on the bandsaw, and I did machine this to within 1/1000th of an inch, actually closer. I used my Starrett certified plate and honed these, and I was able to work within 2/10 of a thou, and was able to remove that nicker section from the tenoning section. Now, of course, I needed to reinsert that, so what I did was, this was all a flat block here, and I resurfaced that, and now this head locks into this side. Can't rotate. Can rotate a tiny smidgen here. Now I had to mill that down so that my knickers were in line with the height of the cutters when they're installed. And that was pretty easy. There is a little bit of play, and I'm able to set my knickers. Now, I did set the block on the granite surface plate and indicated everything, and as I said, I've milled to within 2/10 of a thou, even though I did it on the Wadkin pattern lathe. I then made a T-bushing that sets inside to reduce the bushing. And then I collect these sorts of things. People will either give them to me, they're old machinery hubs. Here is the Wadkin CC, and it's about, I don't know, 1.5 inches thick. It's fairly big. That's the diameter of the motor. So on this side I want it to dig in, so I modified one of these, bored it out, and made it into sort of a top hat so that it would hub on to the top of that. Okay? So now I have a right-hand head. Now the only thing I can say that is different, and of course I'm still at the very beginnings of this, is the shear angle now is towards the knicker. So theoretically, well, I imagine in practical, the shavings will feather off towards the knicker, which is opposite to what they normally do. Although when I've run the other trenching heads, the chips seem to fall straight back, so I don't anticipate any jamming of chips. But I'll pay attention to that, and I'm not going to take massive cuts. This will cut to a depth of 2.5 inches with virtually zero projection of these knives. And so this will put a tenon, a 2-inch tenon on 8x8s, or 7x7 stock, without hitting anything. So this is a great addition for doing bird's mouths and timbers. One cut, you can tip the CC on an angle and draw that through and do your entire bird's mouth cut in one pass. Not to mention, you're not dragging huge material through tables or other things. You're drawing the CC through. It's interesting to note that the CC runs massive bearings. In this particular case, the head bearing is a 2-inch bore, 4-inch diameter bronze cage double road self-aligning main bearing, and can take the masses of this head. I will, of course, ship out the components separately, these aluminum castings for balancing. Although when I had them on the lathe, I did bring them up to 3,000 RPMs and was surprised that I didn't really have any vibration, but I will have them dynamically balanced. It looks as if when Wadkin made them, they simply ground disc sanded areas, and I imagine that was for balancing. It is important, and I'm always amazed that how good these actually run for not being symmetrical or machined entire parts. So I thought that was pretty cool. Anyway, I'll keep you abreast. I still have yet to mill a disc on the back side here that will give a surface area the same diameter as this and hub into this area as well, and to keep the knives off of this. There's also a tiny bit of up and down play so that those don't interrupt when the nut is snugged. And anyway, I'll get it running on the CC maybe in the next month or so. If you don't see the next video, this was a really bad idea. Thank you. Bye-bye.